sons grew up and left home. And they all became very, very successful. And after a period of years, they got back together because they were meeting together for their mom's 70th birthday. So they were all comparing notes, at all three successful sons, about what are they going to give their mom on this very special occasion of her 70th birthday. So the first son said, you know what? I bought Mom a big house. And the second son said, well, I bought Mom a Mercedes-Benz and a driver to go with it. And the third son said, you know what? I've got you both beat. Because you know how Mom loves the Bible, but she can't see very well anymore. So I bought her a special parent that can quote every verse of the Bible. It took 20 monks, 12 years to train this parent. I had to promise to give $100,000 a year for 10 years to their monastery. Mom's gonna love it. So Mom received her gifts and she started on the thank you notes. And so she wrote to her first son. She said, Dear Marvin, the house is too big. I only live in one room, but I have to heat and cool the whole house. Dear Milton, I'm too old to drive. I don't go anywhere. So the car is useless, and by the way, the driver is rude. And for the third son, she said, my dearest Melvin, you are the only son who understands what his mom wants. The chicken was delicious.
Oh.
Welcome to October. We just finished up Prosperity Month, and now we are really on a month. I'm on a month of, there's giving and receiving. We need to be in the flow. So the month of October is about receiving. We can't really experience prosperity in any meaningful way if we're not willing to receive whatever it is that we want. And so this month, every week this month, I'm going to hope to dispel some of the false assumptions that we have. One of them is, and the reason that it's challenging sometimes for us to receive, is that we've been taught, we've bought into this idea that it is better to give than to receive. And so we're great givers. But if we all are great givers and no one is a receiver, we would have no one to give stuff to, because no one would receive it. So it's really two sides of the same coin. The energy of giving is the same as the energy of receiving. But most of us need to get better at being receivers. And so that's what October is going to be about. So let's get started with what I'm thinking. I'm dispelling some false beliefs, false assumptions, and I'm going to start out with the first Mac Daddy, the mother of all false assumptions, and I'm making this assumption, and it is dealing with feelings of unworthiness. Now these feelings are subtle. We don't go about our day and tell people, oh, I feel, like in that movie, I'm unworthy. We don't go and do that, but it's an internal feeling, right? We feel somehow like we have to prove ourselves, that in order for us to receive, we're not going to receive so fully, so freely, so openly. We need to prove. We need to be better. We need to be more perfect. We need to give more. We need to, whatever it is that's going on in our lives, we sometimes have this sense of unworthiness. So I'm on day 29 now of a 30-day program with my former minister. It's called Core Prosperity Relief. Next time he offers this, I'm going to make an announcement and encourage everybody to do it. So it's 15 minutes every day. It's a phone call, and he talks for 15 minutes about some prosperity principle and really diving into our beliefs, and then he has a blog. And there's probably about 80 or 90 people participating, and so you get to read the blogs, or he'll talk a little bit about them. And here's what I've noticed on some of the blogs. It's so interesting. People are really showing up in authentic ways on the blog. And there's a common theme when he's talking about us to find out about beliefs, to paying attention to what we're thinking, to notice. And some of the common beliefs are that people do not feel worthy. They don't feel worthy of having successful relationships. They don't feel worthy of receiving love. They don't feel worthy of finding work they love to do and getting paid well for it. They don't feel worthy of stepping into that next level of beingness, of wholeness, of aliveness, without somehow paying their dues first. They don't feel worthy. And so this is a big challenge for a lot of people, is that, so the Mac Daddy, this is a problem for a lot of us, is that we feel unworthy. Big problem. However, what's not a big problem is being unworthy. Because we may feel all we want about that we're not worthy of something, but that's never the truth. Because the truth is, we are completely worthy. There's nothing that we can be, there's nothing, we're never less than. I think what happens is we have a tendency to compare. And when we're comparing ourselves, even if we're comparing ourselves with our own selves, like, oh, well, by the time I got to be this age, I thought for sure I'd have it made. I thought for sure I would be at this level. And then we're not at that level. And so we feel less than. If we're comparing ourselves to others, we feel less than. Even if we're not comparing ourselves to one particular person, we're comparing ourselves perhaps to a generality. So here's what I want to ask you. If you are currently broke, are you less broke, financially broke? Are you less than? If your kids are not successful, are you less than? Maybe your kids are in jail. Are you less than? Maybe you failed at business. Are you less than? Maybe you're in an abusive relationship. Are you less than? Maybe you have an addiction. Are you less than? And I don't know what you answered silently, but let me give you a hint. It begins with an N and ends with an O. We are never less than. Never. That is an impossibility. Why? Because, my little mantra, there is only one thing. That one thing is God, the infinite, the divine, life itself, love itself, liberty, freedom, joy. The essence of all that is everywhere. It is the only thing, and it is us. How can we ever be less than? We are God in action. God is never limited. Never. And so therefore we're never limited. Ultimately, spiritual truth, but we've adopted stories. We've adopted things that say, well, I didn't succeed at this. Oh, I'm not worthy. I'm less than. Once I'm greater than. So if I'm less than, there's some level of steps to take where I just become equal. Equal. And I know for me, and I don't know, some people, maybe they're new coming in, but you know, I've been to seminars and workshops, and I somehow felt less than the leader. And so I might have wanted to approach them to introduce myself and say hi, but what goes on in my head is, oh, I'm not worthy. I mean, I don't say those words, but that's the feeling behind it. Who am I? And even now, so I'm on Facebook, and there's a whole mess of ministers that I'm assuming don't know who I am. I know who they are. Why do I know? I don't know. You know, I've been at the conferences and they've been speakers, so it's easy for me to know who they are. And it's not that they haven't been introduced to me one time or another, but we've not been on committees together. You know, I mean, they don't know who I am. So I commented on somebody's Facebook post, and she sent me a private email and said she was in Flagstaff, that she was in my neck of the woods and she didn't see me and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, wow, she knows who I am. And in my own way, this was a reminder to me to think, you know what? In regards to her, I guess I was really feeling unworthy of being noticed. Unworthy of having these other ministers who have huge congregations, who are very well known in these organizations, unworthy of them knowing who I am by name. That somehow I'm forgettable. And so I've noticed that sometimes that's how I kind of approach people. So it's not overt. It's kind of this little niggle that I am not stepping up, playing my big game, claiming who I am because, well, who am I? Who am I for anybody to notice me? Well, who am I not? Who are you? We can never not be unworthy. Abraham Hicks writes this: worthiness or unworthiness is something that is pronounced upon you by you. You are the only one that can deem yourself worthy or unworthy. You are the only one who can love yourself into a state of allowing or hate yourself into a state of disallowing. There is not something wrong with you. But we've adopted stories that we've been through hard times. We've allowed other people's ideas and opinions to have input into how we feel about ourselves. So, for example, let me give you this nice example. I here have a $20 bill. How much is it worth? $20, right? Okay, now, hold on. I'm crumpling it up. I'm throwing it on the floor. I'm going to step on it really good. I'm stamping it out. Okay. Now, how much is it worth? The same. All right, now I'm going to kind of spin on it. And I'm going to tear it. And I'm going to crumple it up, and I'm really going to smash it really hard. I'm getting involved in smashing it hard. Okay. How much is it worth? $20. As long as I don't tear off more than half, I think. But it's worth $20. It hasn't dropped in value at all, even though I have stomped on it. I have told it that it's useless. I have spit on it. I have torn it up. It did not reduce in value one iota because it is inherently worthy, just like us. Now, let me tell you what else. This $20 bill has been used for some pretty bad things. This $20 bill has been used to bribe a politician. It's been used to buy a gun that has shot and killed someone. It has been used, it has been rolled up and used to teach a 10-year-old child how to snort cocaine. How much is it worth? $20. Now, the bill, if it's going to talk to you, is going to say, oh, I'm not worth $20. I'll be lucky to be worth a nickel. I've done some bad things. I've been in bad situations. I have been demeaned and spit on. I have been crumpled and squashed. I have killed, I've been used, I've been a participant to kill someone. I am so ashamed. I'm not valuable at all. Well, it's kind of silly in that respect, isn't it? But what do you think that we do? We make up stories about ourselves, about how we've been, where we've been, what we've done, who we are. We make up these stories, and then all of a sudden, we're not worth a whit. We're so low, and we have to work hard just to become equal, just to become normal, just to be able to have somebody remember your name. It's not, none of it is the truth. We have adopted these stories as a false assumption. Dr. Ernest Holmes, founder of religious science, said this. He said, let us begin to feel that we are worthy of the best we can envision. Let us get joy out of living and have a sense of happiness about it. Let us learn to trust where we cannot trace, feeling that each day is an adventure down the pathway to love and success. We need to begin to feel worthy. I did not even take my remote sheet out. We need to begin to feel worthy. We need to begin to remember day by day who we are. We need to begin to dismantle these ideas that somebody told us. Perhaps they were our parents, perhaps they were church, perhaps they were society, perhaps it was teachers, perhaps it was our neighbor. But what happens is that we adopt these ideas as the truth. They become part of our now monkey mind syndrome, and then they've long gone. But we've picked up the reins. We've picked up the reins, and our own inner self-talk is as bad, if not worse, than anything else that we have ever received. And we start talking to ourselves, and we start listening, and we start having these ideas that we're not perfect, that we're less than, that we have to do this, that, and the other thing just to be on par with someone else. The funny thing is they're probably thinking the same thing. We need to rise above our stories. What are we focusing on? Are we focusing on the power and the presence of God that is right within us? Or are we focusing on our shortcomings and our failures and where we have not acted? You see, we have a tendency to identify ourselves with the external, with the conditions that we've created. We are not the conditions. We are the creator of our conditions. Therefore, we're not less than. We are not the beliefs. We are not our beliefs. We are the believer. We are above the beliefs. We can change our beliefs. But we need to move over and beyond those limiting ideas that we're telling ourselves. Where is our focus? We are completely worthy. There's another story that I like to tell, and I've told it a couple of times before, but I'm going to tell it again. So in India, there was a water bearer. And so he would go down from the master's house to the stream with the water containers, the buckets, on his shoulder. And he would collect water and bring it back to the master's house. Well, one of the buckets had a crack in it. So for 2 years, this water bearer went from the master's house to the stream and back, and although he left with 2 buckets, when he arrived, he was only arriving with a bucket and a half of water. 2 years this went on, and finally, when the water bearer was at the stream one day, the cracked bucket couldn't take it anymore, and finally spoke up and said to the water bearer, you know what, I want to apologize. I feel ashamed. I'm very ashamed that I'm not being able to do what I was created to do. And the water bearer says, well, what are you talking about? And he says, well, every day for 2 years, you've come to pick up 2 buckets of water, but when you deliver it, only a bucket and a half is delivered because I have been dripping half of my water out, and I have not been doing what I am supposed to be doing, and not practicing 100% what I was created to do. And so the water bearer had compassion on this pot. He says, well, come with me and let me show you something. And on the way back to the master's house, I want you to look at the ground beneath you. And I want you to notice all the flowers. And so the bucket did notice, and it cheered him up a little bit. But by the time they got back to the master's house, he said, well, that's very nice that there's flowers, but still, I feel inadequate. I still feel unworthy. I still feel regret. I have not been able to perform at a capacity that I was made for. And so the water bearer says, okay, well, let me ask you something. Did you not know, I've always known that you've had a crack. Did you not notice that there were only flowers on one side of the path? Your side? The other side was completely barren? I've known about your crack all the time, and I've made use of it. I've planted wildflowers on this path for the last 2 years. And you have been watering these wildflowers every day. And so when I come back to my master's house, not only do I come back with water, but I've been able to pick these wildflowers every day for 2 years to decorate his table with and to give more beauty to his house. And so what it is with us, do we have flaws? Do we have feelings of imperfection? Do we have areas where we think that we failed, that we're not living up to our potential? Have any of us ever heard that, oh, you're not living up to your potential? Have we ever heard that? And then are we focusing on those flaws? And when we focus on them, what happens? We feel unworthy. We feel less than. We feel guilt and remorse and shame because we are not doing, we're not performing, we're not achieving what it is that we think that we were created to do or that we were meant to do or that we adopted from somebody else. So we're focusing on those things that are faulty, if you will, without noticing that perhaps by the very fact of what it is that we consider a flaw, we're really bringing beauty to the world. We have compassion for someone else's troubles, that we are doing something outside the box that other people are not doing, that perhaps those very things that we think are our weaknesses are our greatest strengths. But we're so busy noticing that we're other things, so busy focused on what it is that we're not doing, what it is that we're not achieving, where it is that we're not living, how much money we're not making, how much relationships we're not having, the traveling that we're not doing, the education that we're not getting. We're so busy focused on that we have completely lost sight of all the good that we're doing, all the gifts that we have, all the benefits that perhaps these perceived flaws have. So we are never less than. We are always 100% worthy. We can't be anything else. So what happens though, because we're talking about receiving, when we have this sense of not being worthy, we push away our good. We don't even receive it because, oh, I'm not worthy, maybe later. How many times do things come your way, but you don't, oh no, I'll take care of it myself. Oh no, I'll do it. You know, I don't want to bother you because, you know, I'm just a lowly person. I'll do everything. And yet the universe, by means of people perhaps, are striving to reach out to you and give to you in a variety of ways, but we won't have anything of it. We won't hear of it. Oh no. Oh no. I want to pay you gobs of money. Oh no, just a little will do. I'm not worthy. I want to send your CD to the moon and beyond. Oh no, just sit on, it's okay. Just my Facebook friend. Do you know what I'm saying? How much do we withdraw and inhibit because we have these feelings that we are not good enough? The Mac Daddy, the mother of all false assumptions, I think is that right there. So we are 100% worthy because we're 100% God. How could anyone ever tell you that you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you that you are less than whole? And that anyone might be your own internal monkey mind. So we need to step into a sense of delight and joy and worthiness. We need to reclaim and remember that we are living the life of God. We need to boldly say yes to our good, to our power, to our magnificence. It's not even in an egotistical way. God forbid we have ever an ego. God forbid somebody says about us, oh, she's got a big head. Oh my God, the end of the world. Because why? We're really not worthy. So, but it isn't having to do with that. It's reclaiming our divine sense of who we are. It's reclaiming our divine birthright. It is stepping into who we are, our individuality. It's stepping into our identity as God, as the creator, as the joy maker, as the facilitator, as the experiencer of the life that we have, and the life that we choose, and the life that we create. And yet put those stories behind us. They might have served us at one time, but I'm going to say today, they serve us no longer. They serve us no longer. So I'm going to encourage each one of us to remember that truth. Remember that right where we are, God is. Remember that we are the darling of the divine. That God is delighted in living its life, living its fullness, living its joy, its power, its passion, its purpose, its abundance and opulence right through us. That we have every right and to say yes to that. And when we're looking at lack and limitation, when we're looking at our flaws, that is an incorrect use of our divine mind. That is adopting something less than what we are. Remember the story of the dollar bill even. We are completely worthy just because we are here. We're worthy because we're God in form. And I'd say, let's remember that, step into an idea of receiving in a greater way, and see if then we can increase our own sense of stepping in to those worlds of possibilities, stepping in a greater way to creating on purpose, consciously and deliberately, our amazing life, whatever that looks like. And stepping in to that authority, to that identity, boldly and proudly, without apology, without shame, because the surface of it, that doesn't matter. That's not the truth of who we are. As I said, we're the believer, we're the thinker, we're the creator. We're the worthy ones, all of us. And see if our life doesn't unfold, that we are not open to receiving and receiving more and more good, that we're not living a more fulfilled and happy life if we can just get rid of this one Mac Daddy. How could anyone ever tell you, even your own monkey mind, do not allow it anymore, that you are anything less than beautiful, less than whole, less than brilliant, less than genius, less than unique, less than divine, less than vital, less than magnificent, less than joyous, less than perfect. Don't let anyone ever tell you, let's just step into the world of possibilities. And so it is.